Hi, my name is Benjamin Cohen. I'm doing assignment number 2 for ISM course 809 Digital Marketing. Yeah, I'm going to be answering the 6 questions that were asked in response to or after reading the case analysis on the CDK Digital Marketing, addressing channel conflict with data analytics. Okay, just to try to keep this going, I'm going to try not to run over time like I did last time. Number 1, what are the digital marketing objectives and goals of the GM dealers? I'm going to start off with, because that question is very forward-looking. I'm going to start off with talking about the first contract that CDK Digital won with GM. That was the contract from 2007 to 2012, presumably a 5-year contract. The objectives and it's the purpose for talking about that one is more evident in the later questions. So in that one, the objectives were to have a greater control over dealer websites to ensure that all brands and models were presented and marketed consistently. So GM, the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, they felt that the dealerships weren't marketing in a consistent message as the manufacturer was. They felt that this different direction or conflict of message was confusing the customers or deteriorating their brand strength and their really what GM stood for when with their different models of cars and climbing the ladder of hierarchy between the different models and getting up to the luxury cars after you had started years ago at the baseline models. And so that was the message. What was the expectation? The goals of that campaign was to provide marketed services, the web design, the content updates, and the promotions to ensure delivery of a quality experience to the online shoppers. And then through reading the case study, the objectives were delivered, but one of the bigger problems was that some of the top dealers felt that the websites were too rigid and inflexible, that it was meeting the corporate objectives without listening to the dealers' reality of the situation. So some statistics that they said in there: before the economic downturn in 2008 and 2009, only about 43% of dealers were using the CDK Digital provided website as their primary website. And then the economic downturn hit, and June 2009, GM files for bankruptcy. And so, because of the difficulties for both GM and for the dealers, half of those dealers who were using non-CDK Digital design websites as their primary websites actually canceled them just to cut costs and probably personnel and effort, time as well. So therefore, towards the end of this, 2011, 70% of dealers were using the CDK Digital website as their primary, which this kind of leads into. According to the contract, CDK Digital excelled in what they were expected to do, of get the websites up and get them uniform across the dealers and get them with the same message and encourage the conversion. So there was less conflict or less disparity between the CDK Digital website and the other websites from third-party companies. So anyways, this leads into the 2012 objectives. For this time, the objectives have changed. It's to appease both parties, really. The OEMs still want so the OEMs will be providing the brand awareness, still like they always have. But then the dealers are selling the actual car. So the quote that they said was that the GM hired CDK Digital, but it's the dealers who can fire. So therefore, CDK Digital, with their bid, they really have to appease both sides of this. One of the things that Because what are the objectives in this? That in the contract with CDK Digital, they said in the case study that less than 20% of dealers have marketing personnel on staff, and so without or permanent employees. And so without having that individual who's responsible for the online content, it can be tough to integrate consistently and especially quickly when GM has a new promotional campaign or has a new marketing or has something new for the month, that it can't be a consistent message spread throughout all of the companies. So what was it? Google study. There was a Google study that showed that less than 25% of people who are shopping or researching online eventually buy the car make or model that they started their online search with. So that can add to the goal of reducing online brand defection, which the best approach for GM would be really coordinating the marketing between GM and the dealers, and that have every dollar spent towards the best return advertising, no competing between the parent and the dealers. So this gets referred to back in questions 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, also not just spending the right dollars, it's also coordinating and aligning the goals, the objectives of what the campaigns are for. So question number 2, what are the barriers that CDK Digital should overcome to be the sole supplier to the GM dealers? So of the barriers, there's a couple obvious ones. There are many dealers who feel that CDK Digital is not superior to the competition, that the website template is very restrictive. That was mentioned several times. That the website administrator tools for dealers were insufficient. That for the administrative tools as well as for the SEO, the search engine optimization, they were offering basic help, but then CDK Digital wanted to upsell the dealers on a more complete package, so like extra costs to the individual dealers. And then most obviously there's one dealer of the Customer Relationship Management Subcommittee of the Chevrolet Dealer Council who has a predetermined opinion that it's so negative on CDK Digital that he refused to even come to the meeting that the case study is preparing for. So to speak more about the situation, less about the emotions of it, the dealers are many of the big dealers are proud of their own marketing and advertising efforts. They've built their brands and then they've become a name that their local shoppers trust. Some dealers have brand competition within their markets, and thus it's important for them to differentiate themselves from the other dealers selling the same brands of cars. When dealers were forced to use the CDK Digital supplied websites, they then had multiple websites. The one that they had built and then the one that they were required to have. And so that required them to choose how to split their energy, their efforts, and their money. And a lot of the times they chose to develop their own websites. So by forcing them to do a website that they were already doing, but that was rigid and inflexible, etc., this caused some distrust in CDK Digital and in general the partnership between GM and CDK. The distrust was in the eyes of the dealers. So then another problem was the external to the GM hierarchy or the umbrella is that there's a large amount of fierce competition in the digital marketing landscape. There are a lot of lead generation sites steering consumers to the highest paying competitors for their cars, their makes and models. And one of the examples that they said in here was that only about 30 to 50% of the visitors to dealer websites were in result of OEM advertising. and thus we infer, they don't specifically say, but we infer that the remaining 50 to 70% from any of this were from many sources, but largely the dealers' marketing efforts were the biggest chunk of that 50 to 70%. And so it's 30 to 50 versus a big chunk of 50 to 70. We don't really know who spends the dollars most effectively. And it's also listed that Dealer.com is the main competition for CDK Digital in a single platform solution provider. And they have other car manufacturers, other OEMs in their portfolio, that are their clients. So question number 3, what kind of benefits can CDK Digital offer to the GM dealers that differentiate them from other digital marketing companies? So their business, as far as I could read in the case study, is very focused in the online marketing segment, and their focus, their specialty, it being the online, the internet based, is beneficial because the 10-year trend that they showed in the case study was indicating a large drop in newspaper ads, whereas the internet ads were the largest growth, and then TV and direct mail and radio were a little bit moved, a little bit larger because of the newspaper significant drop. So also CDK Digital has a high sophistication with its online advertising techniques, where they're tracking the shopper's traffic with cookies on your computer, and so we'll get into that later in the questions. But they've also, one of their strengths is that CDK Digital has been working with GM for the last 5 years. And so they know GM system, they know GM personnel, they know the structure and organization of the company. And so they had won the sole provider of GM with a website strategy focused on the brand compliance, but then CDK's relationship had evolved into a more complete internet media solution that focused on providing sales opportunities to dealers. Like the original contract that they signed wasn't really their main focus in the later years, is really to help the dealers get the customers across the finish line. And so I guess it kind of started with with GM, and then it moved more towards the dealers and where CDK was spending their time and a lot of their efforts and their employees' work. They had also, because of this 5-year relationship, CDK has already began adapting their company offering specifically to the GM dealer situation. One of the examples that they mentioned in there is the DTAP, the Dealer Technology Assistance Program, which is focused on interfacing with the dealer-chosen technologies instead of the OEM-specific tools. This development, it's already ready for the second or third phase rollout, whereas any other competitor in the market would be the first initial product development, where it's going to have bugs, it's going to have problems, it's going to need revamping. Well, effectively, CDK is 6 months, a year ahead of the competition. One of the other things that they advertise is that they can handle big data, where they say 20 million website visits and 1 billion ad placements per month. Those sound like big numbers, and unfortunately I'm not well experienced in the situation to know how that compares to other companies' advertising. So it is big data. It needs to be stored on computers, and it needs to be filtered and analyzed and use the analytics, and so we're coming up on that too. One of the things that I liked is that CDK acquired Admission to show the ads in real time, and that's another question down there below. So effectively, after a user could search for a particular maker model, they would then see ads for that maker model on subsequent websites visited, and that's one of the strengths that Admission brought to CDK Digital. This continuing to answer this is the question number 4. What are the benefits of real-time content customizations for the GM dealers? So with that admin, wait, sorry. So effectively, what admission did, where it can track the users and follow them from website to website and give them ads on the subsequent websites, whether it's a car website or shopping or groceries, food, whatever. By seeing those ads follow them through the internet, that effectively keeps the brand or make or model in the mind of the consumer longer. They have that subconscious effect, as well as just being reminded of the car and what they liked about it, the features, the interiors, the colors. So it gives in effect, cumulatively, that gives an increased consideration to GM, as well as a likeliness of purchase. It's a successful business tactic. The impact of real-time ads is also immediate and to a pre-specified viewer profile. And so what I mean by this is, if you look at some of the other advertising that they had in the chart, the newspapers, direct mail, radio, and TV, the way that they make their, the way that they occur is, you've got to make your ad ahead of time, you've got to pay for it, and then you have to wait until the newspaper gets printed, the direct mail actually goes through the mail system, the radio, they're not selling today's ads, they're selling next week's ads or the week after or whatnot, as well as the TV. They're, hopefully not booking next hour's ads right now. And so therefore, with the online direct marketing, they still have to create those ads ahead of time, but then they can specifically say this ad appeals to the safety of the vehicle, and that aligns with these customers, and so we can target that. It hits the specific intended customer, as well as you can try to track it, try to see any effects, any results from that, if they go back to the websites, or if they like that day, or if they go back to the websites a day or two later. And so you have much more immediate impact when you make the decision of who you're sending it to, as well as you can continue to track it with the online digital signatures. So some of these benefits are also the continuing steps in coordinating the ads between the General Motors and the dealers. Effectively, by making this campaign, the real-time advertising, they can look at the budgeting or the strategies of GM and the dealers and make sure they're not competing against each other, make sure that if GM has a stronger advertisement, a stronger marketing campaign towards a certain demographic, then they can release that to that demographic when it comes up in the admission results or observations. Whereas if the dealer had a strong advertisement in a different way, perhaps the personal appeal of talking to a salesman or whatnot, then those can be advertised to a different demographic or subset. And so this really helps the coordination between OEM and the dealers. Question number 5, what does analytics mean for CDK Digital, and how do they leverage analytics? So I went and did a keyword search, or just a Control F through the PDF on the case study, and the word analytics is severely underdescribed in this case study. It's really a question asking us for our interpretation external to the case study, because the word analytics is only mentioned 7 times, and that includes the title. And so they don't really go into the detail with it. No specifics, no particular technology or algorithms of what are they. I presume it's just cutting edge technology, and so they don't want to talk about new technology that's not proven, that could fall flat in the next couple years, or they don't want to talk about it in detail and then have their competitors read this case study and steal it from them, even though it's a couple years after the fact. So anyways, analytics starts with the big data, gathering, collection, QCing, sorting, and filing. And then you, with this large volume of data that you're storing as well as manipulating, you're filtering and querying, which is the 20 million website visits and 1 billion ad placements per month. That's a good base start. So then analytics is the data analysis of all these bits, and the analytics is just the word for the process of how you're trying to make sense out of the big data, how you're trying to find the trends within this forest of data, usable information, usable strategy. What I gleaned from the case study is that they're trying to analyze what shoppers are looking at, what's the sequence of their shopping journey, and then what cars they eventually buy, so that they can track the individual actions of specific people, as well as track the macro actions of many shoppers, their actions as well as inactions. That's another key conclusion. So when they're tracking the shoppers, they track what websites they were visiting, what were their keyword searches, what are their interests in specific cars, if they're specifically narrowed it down to 3 or 4 cars, as well as what are their competitors' cars, which, they might know, which mid-size car is competitive with the other competition, but it helps get a sense of how educated the consumer is, the shopper is, or is safety an issue, is price an issue, is size, is fuel efficiency. It helps kind of view these macro trends, as well as individuals if they so choose. So then they can also, another big analytics thing is identifying the source of the shoppers. How did they come to the dealer websites? Was it by clicking on a partner website ad? Was it a search engine result? Was it advertising by the OEMs, or was it advertising by the dealers? And so this type of information, this analytics results, can help them refine their strategies and better choose what they're going to spend their dollars on next month or next quarter. So question number 6, what do you feel should be the primary focus of CDK Digital to be the sole supplier to the GM dealers? In the case study, it says the GM and the dealer councils are deciding to evaluate the 2012 contract based on complex ad model, analytics, website functionality, and then optimizing the websites. And so those are the 4 that were listed in the case study. What I see right there is that the second 2, the website functionality as well as the optimizing the websites, that's along the lines of what CDK Digital has been doing and can continue to do in the future. I'm going to come back to those 2. But since I was just answering question number 5, that the first 2, the complex ad models and then the analytics of those, those are very much what CDK Digital has enhanced their business with the acquisition of Admission, as well as presumably a significant momentum, a significant effort of the company on a go-forward basis on what they're providing to their clients. And so how I should feel they should be the primary focus of that one. I really like the ad model, the targeting ads, the ads that kind of follow them around. I am one of those people who prefers to have targeted ads to me. I don't want ads targeted that's only like female clothing. I would rather see ads that are guy clothing or whatever. And so I think that the ad models, the analytics that they can do are actually beneficial to the customers, as well as is helping helping them win the customers over, helping them appeal to the customers in the way that the customers want the most. And so then I said I was going to come back to the the website functionality and the optimized websites. This is kind of a little personal aside that I find it really difficult how many times I've heard in my real world experience and in these case studies that it comes down to a competition, left side versus right side, and they're just stalled out, they're blocked at some impasse, and that the two sides won't compromise, that there aren't ideas that are outside of the box, or guys and gals realistically talking about what are your objectives here, and don't focus on the details, focus on the main objectives, the higher goals, and then you can redefine the lower goals as you go forward. And so just me personally, when I read this question, I feel that if the goal is really for General Motors to have a consistent brand experience from what they're saying and from what the dealers are saying, and that also the dealers want the autonomy, that I kind of see that as a scale, that as I said earlier in the paper, that some of these dealerships only sell a handful of cars per month on average, and then you got the huge dealerships that are run as a Fortune 500 company. And so for me, I kind of viewed it not as a left side versus right side. I viewed it more as CDK can come in there, create a website as a basic starting platform for any one of the dealers, and then build on it from there. That if they want more complexity, if they want more search engine tools, if they want more whatnot, then they can help them with the consulting, with the actual web design, with the just improved experience on the website, as well as focusing on where should their time most appropriately be spent in bigger cities or versus the town of 50 people or whatnot. But that once they help the dealers grow their website, grow their brand, become more influential, higher sales and whatnot, that the dealerships will gain that understanding, like the other ones that the councils have, that having a full-time marketing person staffed is beneficial to their business in the long run. And so they would actually go from a good use of the CDK website to having their own person and then developing their own website where they're developing their own brand, where they had the competition of also GM dealerships, but in the same city, like Houston, where I am now. And so I kind of view it as like the dealers who are spending the big money on these advanced websites, they kind of are the third step of the process. You shouldn't be fighting against step 1 versus step 3, that really it's step 1, step 2, and then step 3. The ones who don't know how to do technology, the ones that are making success out of it, and then the ones that are really harnessing their brand and building their brand. And so I feel that with kind of letting the dealers win, or view in their minds that they're winning with they get the website design, they can build themselves, build their names, that's the biggest problem and the biggest setback that they've had with the dealer councils and with the dealers on the first contract. And letting GM focus on the brand, the consistent brand message. That's their objectives, and they can spend that time better. Like a big dealer, they know how to follow the rules, but then those middle-sized dealers that are growing into the digital landscape, they're the ones that need more help with keeping that message consistent, as well as have great potential for growth. And so I'm over 29 minutes, and so I'm just going to say as a conclusion that the dealer council kind of gets the final decision in who they're going to hire for the digital marketing, digital advertising for them. And so you need to appeal to the dealers while staying within the rules, the confines of General Motors, as well as saying the amount of change that has happened from the 2007 contract to the 2011 contract or 2012 contract come to expect that it's going to have that much change again in the coming 5 years. And so keep that in mind for sure. Don't write the contract too strict. Okay, 30 minutes. Thank you. Hope it was good. Okay, bye.